The blood test is another way you can do it. It's not 100%. I gave an example of a study that looked at 52 kids who are culture positive for strep, and that measured the ASO antibody and then the anti-DNase antibody. And it's definitely not 100% of the kids. So if you don't have a definitive child with classic strep pharyngitis symptoms or an illness or some other documented case, you have to start gathering as much information as you can because you have to build a circumstantial evidence case. So the ASO anti-DNase, if they're positive, can help support your case. But if they're negative, it doesn't necessarily hurt your case.
Now, because you had said something earlier, so somebody else, like let's say another family member has strep, or perhaps a childhood friend, or somebody your child's been exposed to. Now, are you telling me then the antibodies then, I guess, wake up in a different way at that moment, if they might have been asleep prior to that?
Well, if you're exposed to a very small amount of the pathogen, maybe not enough to get you sick, your body, if it remembers that pathogen, may start making an antibody in anticipation that you might get sick. And it's trying to cut it off at the pass. And because the PANDAS is really caused by the antibody and not the strep itself, you don't classically have to have the strep infection. Most do, but that doesn't have to be the case.
Because our body's constantly trying to trying to protect ourselves.
You always your body's trying to be proactive, not reactive. So if it senses that something's around, the same type of thing.
Now, you had said if we want to catch it earlier, what happens if our child has PANDAS and they're 10 and we didn't know about it and they've had it since maybe they were 5 or 6?
Right.
Is it harder? You said it was harder to treat, but it's not impossible.
That's right. It's not impossible. It's a little bit more refractory, so it usually takes us a little while longer to get the acute symptoms under control. So there's 2 phases of PANDAS treatment. One is gaining control over the acute symptoms, and the other is a maintenance phase. So it will take a little longer and a little harder. It will be a little longer, a little harder to get the acute control with a refractory.
Does it ever go away, or does it go like in a remission almost?
Well, there is a waxing and waning for PANDAS. So you can have an episode of PANDAS and not have another outbreak, even with a strep exposure, for a year or 2. So it's a little bit unpredictable that way. A lot of kids will age out of PANDAS per se. The immune system does seem to mature, and so you stop getting the immune response. So
that's good to know.
Yeah, so most of the time I tell my patients that there's a good chance that by the end of puberty, the symptoms will go away. So we are left with getting acute control and then putting you on a good maintenance plan. And it's not always as easy as I make it sound to be, but that's the goal.
Well, I'm so fascinated. Now, if they want more information about your work, how do they find you?
Yeah, I have a website. It's the fullpotentialwellnesscenter.com. It's a mouthful, but there's some good information there. You can also check out the PANDAS Resource Network online, and that's a great one-stop shop for a lot of great PANDAS information. I'm on the scientific advisory board for that committee.
And what's that website?
It's www.pandasresourcenetwork.com.
Yeah, that we like to have a lot of big words here.
Yeah.
And I know that you presented today, and if you guys had missed that presentation, if you weren't fortunate enough to get to come, definitely go to www.nationalautismassociation.org, and I'm sure they'll have some type of DVDs or something.
Yeah, I'm sure you can purchase the DVD. You may be able to see a clip of it. Yeah, and I'll see if I can get copies of my PowerPoint presentation up on my website too.
As I think it's so important for us to know about all the different doctors and the protocols and the different specialties. And that's one thing that I really love about our autism community is that every doctor seems to have like their little specialty or their little niche.
Right.
Because it's not a one size fits all. It seems as though that everybody's so unique. And so we need to figure out how, to, I guess, kind of all work together.
I agree. Not only do we all have different personalities, we all each have a different approach. A good friend of mine, Dr. Dan Rosignol, we do things very similar but very different at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But the real key is to find the right practitioner for you that has a style that you like and a personality that you like, and you'll be successful.
Now, for the parents out there that have never heard of biomedical, and this is like the first time, so they're sitting here, you guys are watching, you're thinking, okay, I want to help my kid. I just learned all about PANDAS. They now know how to find you.
Right.
What is something that you would recommend to them to ask their practitioners or their doctors specializing in this? Is there something that you would give them advice on different questions to ask or things to look into?
Well, I think that PANDAS is one piece of a big immunologic puzzle that happens with kids with ASD. So where the rubber really meets the road, in my eyes, is as an inflammatory and an oxidative stress issue. So I really think that kids, when you're first starting out, you really want to identify this as early as possible. But for kids who have been doing this for a while and not having as much success as they'd like to have, make sure that you've crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's on the immune system. Make sure you're not missing any autoimmune conditions. There's a lot of them that are very common. PANDAS is just one. We also see anti-endothelial autoantibodies, which is measured at Washington University in St. Louis by Dr. Ann Connolly. And then more recently, we see anti-folate autoantibodies measured by Dr. Edward Quadros at State University of New York, which is probably going to be a big player for helping more kids get better in the future.
Well, and the thing is, it's when you talk about autoimmune disorder, there's just so many different subgroups and subcategories.
Sure.
And so a lot of our kids, don't they cross over into some of these other fields?
Yeah, absolutely. If we could get regular medicine to actually look at these kids, which most will not, I think that they would see that there's enough pathology there to initiate some treatment. It's hard to get into the door of most of these places because once they hear you have a diagnosis on the spectrum, they want to write everything off to autism spectrum. But as you know, if you look at the diagnostic criteria, you don't see anything on there like thyroid dysfunction or constipation. Yet most people are reluctant to treat those.
Well, I think it's going to take more doctors like you on the front lines, like I said originally, to basically, you're helping break down those doors for our mainstream, because I really, in my heart of hearts, I truly believe, I'm hoping it doesn't take 10 years, but for some reason I feel like it might take another 10 years for those doors to be really knocked down and really be able to go into a clinic and not have your child, I know with my son, he wasn't having bowel movements, and the gastrointestinal doctor specialist that we waited 3 months for said, oh, it's because he has autism and he's holding it.
Right.
And we know that's not true. And, if that's being told to you by anybody, my recommendation would be to get a second opinion because, once we figured out there was other issues there, guess what?
Constipation got better.
Absolutely.
Constipation is the symptom, not the problem.
Exactly. And his language got better and his eye contact got better. And so where are your boys now? Like, I know one you said was on the spectrum, the other's not.
Yeah.
How's the one on the spectrum doing, and how's the one that's not? How is he handling that and coping with his brother?
Well, let's start with my younger son, Grant, first, because he does fantastic. He was asked last year at his elementary school to give an impromptu speech to his class on autism, and we were just so proud of him. He did a great job. We have our typical brother rivalries, but overall, he does really good. He does a great job of explaining it. He makes probably more people in our local community aware of autism than probably I do, as most of my patients come from afar.
Yeah.
So Grant's probably our local representative for autism awareness.
I love it.
Yeah, he does a great job. Cameron, too, does a great job. It's a lot of hard work on my wife's part, but we have the educational component now, probably at the best state that it's ever been. The therapeutic component is doing really good, and I'm just trying to keep up with my biomedical end.
Very good.
So, but we're trying to meet it all in the middle. Cameron's nonverbal, but he does utilize a Dynavox, and he does that with really good precision and high skill.
Now, when you say he's nonverbal, but how is he? Is he using things like an iPad or with computers? Or I know my son is really into his iPad and different things. And the things I see with our children that are either nonverbal or maybe don't have a lot of language, they are so brilliant. It's just about unlocking that intelligence to let us know what's going on in their brain, right?
Right, that's right.
So do you see other modalities that he's using?
Yeah, we use the Dynavox V system, which is a precursor to things like the iPad and the Pro Loco 2. It works out really good. It's really heavy and it's really expensive. It's a $9,000 unit, but it does really well. It offers a lot of flexibility, and I tell people all the time that autism is not as much of a problem getting things into the brain as it is getting them back out reliably.
Well, I am so grateful that you took this time. Is there any messages that you would like to give to the families out there that are perhaps struggling or they're new in this journey?
Well, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of good information. There's a lot of bad information. So make sure you keep asking questions. If you get answers that you don't think meet your expectations, to keep looking. No one can be more responsible for your child improving and recovering than yourself. So you have to be your child's advocate, and sometimes you have to step on some toes. Sometimes you have to push your way through doors. But if you get better, it's all worth it.
Well, you're definitely an inspiration to me because, I'm just so grateful for those doctors that are willing to, walk that walk and fight that fight. So thank you for being here today.
No problem. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
And then to all of you guys out there, thank you guys once again for allowing us to bring hope into your homes. Until next time. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for Autism Approved with Kristen Selby Gonzalez. Please join us next week for another episode brought to you by Enzymedica.